Endpoint Vision and Beyond. Live Your Preferred Future Now by George McMaster and Vic Lindal. Part 1. Introduction. Overview of the EPV system. This book contains a simple system that is easy to learn and can bring positive change into your life. The authors have used it extensively to achieve extraordinary results for themselves and for people they have introduced to Endpoint Vision, EPV. The creation of an endpoint vision starts as a single activity. Then its true power manifests as it becomes a habitual way of organizing thoughts and action. Daniel Coyle says in The Talent Code that success is a function of deep practice, ignition, and master coaching. Master Coach Vic Lindal adds, consistency over time delivers. Let us begin with the end point. The endpoint vision system in its simplest form is, number 1, take 5 minutes to create a clear picture of your preferred future. Number 2, take action within 24 hours. Number 3, notice the results. These 3 simple steps will teach your subconscious that your vision is achievable, so it can engage to support you in your quest. Did you notice how your inner voice responded to what you just read? That is your belief system talking. Did it accept or dismiss the idea? Alignment with your belief system is central to your vision becoming reality. The rest of this book will reveal why EPV works, its benefit in your life, how to implement it in different life areas, and how to make it a habit. See the appendix for self-study worksheets. EPV taps our essential nature. Visioning is integral to the human story. Each evening, the entertainment at the Barcelo Hotel, south of Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, includes a wonderful performance by a dance company. The hotel is nestled in a bay surrounded by mountains, forests, and ocean, adjacent to the site where The Night of the Iguana movie was filmed many years ago. Parts of the set remain, but much of it is engulfed in vegetation and neglect and overshadowed by the history of and the culture of the land that holds it. This backdrop frames the dances that entertainers enact for their audience. One performance stands out not only for the dance itself, but also for the powerful story it tells. This elegant dance, with its striking costumes, the rhythmic beat of drums, the sound of many instruments, the passion and energy of the dancers, all evoke thoughts of both sacrifice and celebration. As each dance is performed, the stage fills with many elaborately costumed dancers, accompanied by complex orchestral arrangements. You can imagine my surprise and curiosity when the final performance presents a lone dancer, primitively adorned and wearing a deer head mask replete with horns. As he dances, I have the sense that the deer is enjoying moving about the plains, feeding and watching for predators. Suddenly, 2 archers appear, one on each side of the stage, and through dance movement symbolize the stalking of the deer. After some time, one of the archers lets his imaginary bowstring twang, and the deer dancer reacts as if struck by the invisible arrow. But not with a fatal blow. The deer charges the archer and chases him from the stage. The remaining archer begins firing. His bow and symbolic arrows appear to strike the deer with solid hits. The deer has enough energy left to charge, chasing him as well. Alone on the stage, the deer begins to show the effects of the strikes and slowly circles as life leaves him. He lays down and dies. It intrigued me that this ancient dance appeared in this context. I wondered why this was included and what its importance was, as it seemed so out of context with the other dances. What is the significance of the dance? Why is it important to you? And how can what we are teaching you in this book about visioning have a significant impact in your life? Our success as a species. Many anthropologists believe that during a critical time in our development as a species on Earth, there were two strands of Homo sapiens, one of which was our ancestor. One strand firmly believed in and used the idea that to have a successful hunt, it was mandatory to enact the entire hunt and then conclude with the capture of the game. The men participating in the hunt would first enact a scenario as a rehearsal where they would attract the game, slay it, and butcher it. This play was done as realistically as possible, with sounds, movement, emotion, and celebration. This rehearsal of the hunt allowed the participants to clearly visualize each step toward success. Their endpoint vision of a successful hunt allowed them to experience and to live in their preferred future scenario. They created their map for success. Each hunter knew what he had to do by participating in this ancient ritual, with each hunter playing a role. If blood was available, then it was used to add reality, and especially feeling, to the task of visualizing the hunt. How significant was this exercise of visualizing a successful hunt? So significant, in fact, that the anthropologists believe the branch of Homo sapiens that did not enact scenarios for the future actually died out, gone forever. Why, you ask? Because they did not carry with them into the hunt a clearly defined vision of what was necessary for success. Therefore, they were not successful in either attracting the game or capturing it. The branch of humankind that understood visualizing the steps toward an end result, that is, attracting the prey, finding the prey, successfully capturing it, and harvesting it, were able to survive under harsh conditions to become the ancestors of both you and me. Let's analyze the meaning of the dance that I witnessed that night. By clearly identifying the goal and enacting the outcome, the hunters knew that they were increasing their chances of success. Otherwise, they would not have invested the time and the energy in this rehearsal prior to going on the hunt. When you're moving toward a future goal, we encourage you to be like the hunters and take the time to think about your end result. That is, to live in your preferred future in your mind with as much clarity as possible. Also, a skeptic might ask, why would the dance be passed down from generation to generation? The reason is simply that it works. After we present the endpoint vision system, we invite the reader to identify how the ancient dance could be improved to get the desired result. Back-shaping example, skill training. One of the best examples of training using the EPV system that I've encountered is the teaching of spiking the volleyball by Vic Lindal in his role as a sports coach. The discussion applies readily to computer training programs. If you have watched a volleyball game, you will see a player position the ball in the air above the net on their side. It's called a set. A teammate watches the setter and times their movements carefully. They run to the net, leap into the air, and pound the ball at the opposition. Sounds easy. However, having tried this action and having reasonable athletic ability, I found it to be a challenge. The question then is, how do you teach someone this skill? If you choose to use forward processing, you first teach them to run to the net, then to take an appropriate number of steps, then teach them to jump, and then teach them to smash the ball. The surprise is that this is possibly the least effective way to teach this skill. Let's attempt to follow Vic in his training session and illustrate a first approximation of his method. Vic does an exciting and motivating illustration. The same ideas that are expounded here would be modeled in a computerized training or teaching package. Consider what we call a back chain approach. The first step is to analyze the tasks involved. We simply call this task analysis. Within the EPV system, we would call this identifying critical events. We will present a first attempt at a training session. The first question is, what are the fewest number of steps and what are they? A guiding piece of advice might be to choose what we believe to be the largest gain in mastery that the trainee could make. We can then consider what will be some of the significant sub-steps. This problem-solving strategy is called divide and conquer. We think about the training session that we will be creating and decide that the fourth step is striking the ball. A good strike or spike leads to scoring a point. Working backwards, the third step is leaping into the air. The second step is approaching the ball where timing is critical, and the first step is getting into position. Now let's fill in some of the training to illustrate why the back chain approach is meritorious. Step 4. The fourth step involves striking the ball. This is the end point. Therefore, Vic has them stand on a chair and he tosses or holds the ball for them and they practice hitting. Note that he has removed most of the problems of the spiker getting to the ball, and the trainee can focus on this critical event. Note also that the trainee will likely do well with this small segment and as a result will feel great. Vic would do what we call initialization with the student, where he shows or demonstrates the correct process. In this way, the student sees clearly how to perform the action and what the result of the activity is. All actions culminate in the hit or the spike, which is the endpoint, EPV, for this skill. So let's get it right, or at least 80% right. Over time, we will move toward 100%. Step 3 to 4. After the EPV is performed to his satisfaction, Vic next moves the hitter to the floor. From the floor, the student takes a position close to the net with arms back, ready to jump. Vic tosses a ball or holds it, and the student hits the ball. At this stage, Vic would do initialization on step 3 and demonstrate or show the right action on step 4. Let's analyze the significance of our training so far. We are learning a new critical third step and repeating the fourth, which we now have mastery in. This will help to commit the fourth step to long-term memory and emphasize that the result of the process is a strong, accurate hit. A short note about memory is in order, with thanks to Hermann Ebbinghaus research on the forgetting curve in 1885. Right after reading something, you have 100% of what you retained. Within 2 days, you will have forgotten 50 to 80%. After a week, if you take no action to anchor the short-term memories, you will have forgotten about 98% of what you originally retained. The key idea here is that repetition is the mother of learning. You have to repeat something to commit it to long-term memory, and certainly you want to memorize correct action. It is thus important to note that we are repeating the fourth step, which has been learned at a mastery level, and we are keeping the EPV or final goal top of mind. Therefore, we are committing a correct action to long-term memory. As we step back in the sequence of backchain processing, we are always repeating the right action. This is not the case with forward processing, which repeats the first step more often. We can also improve the current step, which we call refining. This is done by offering hints, providing help, or doing partial exercises to improve on the hitting process. At the refining stage, you might use partial exercises, pictures or movies, or some kind of memory jogger. Vic sometimes associates a color with right action. For example, blue. So the person is saying blue as they hit. Step 2 to 3 to 4. The second step is the approach. Repeat the instruction with step 2, initialization. use refining with step 3, and now the fourth step we use the term perform, where the learner is now doing the fourth step without any help from the coach. Step 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Finally, you will teach the first step, getting into position, with the previously learned steps flowing immediately after to complete the task. Step 5. There is more that can be learned from this example. This is why we titled the book EPV and Beyond. In life, after setting the goal, we always ask, what's next? Or what happens next? After the fourth step, what happens next? The striker must land. Therefore, we can possibly add a fifth step to learn landing. Here's what Vic says. Teach the landing, which is the conclusion of the spike. Land softly, toes, then heels with an 80% knee bend, etc. In keeping with the suggestion to define the largest steps for the largest gain in mastery, I personally would include the landing as part of step 4. However, I would want the endpoint to be the masterful striking or spiking of the ball. I would consider the landing to be a sub-step of step 4, and in the training, all of the 4 steps outlined above would have significant sub-steps. The steps that have been well trained are repeated right away while also learning additional steps, thus committing right action to memory as soon as possible. In forward processing, the tendency is to perform all of the steps from the start, lose sight of the end goal or EPV, and rehearse wrong steps. This was certainly the case in the discussion by a setter on a college team that we described earlier, when we emphasized the pros and cons of forward processing versus back processing. We call the above back chaining training, IRP, initialize, refine, and perform. Note that we have scheduled the training for the endpoint or the hitting of the spiking at least 6 times in the training program. Remember that the sequences will be repeated many more times. When the EPV system is applied to training, it is evident that you are always practicing right things that are then committed to memory. Because of the back chaining in the system, you repeat the end goal and repeat the correct version of each step. The trainee feels great. With forward processing, you practice a lot of the wrong things, and the final goal may get lost within a lot of little apparent wins that seem like goals. The trainee does not feel great. This point cannot be overemphasized. With the laddering visualization diagram, which is contained in the book, you're focused on getting good feelings at each stage. Memory and performance are enhanced when good feelings are present. Here's an example from my personal experience in the sporting arena. When I played juvenile hockey, I would always be asked to kill penalties. I can remember the great feelings that I had when I got control of the puck and ragged it in, often consuming the majority of the penalty. An even better feeling was getting a breakaway while killing a penalty. Being a short man, or a man short, this was the elite thing to do in my opinion. That year, I had over 40 breakaways. I scored on one. The one that I scored on was when I was bumped on the way to the opposition's net and fell and dragged the puck into the net. Lots of sympathy. You can see clearly that I lost the purpose of the game. The purpose was to score goals. I would be traveling so fast while being chased that I thought, in hindsight, it was okay to not score. After all, I was doing one of the most difficult things, getting a breakaway while our team was a man short. You can see the breakaway was a critical event for me. However, the correct EPV critical event was scoring a goal. If my coach had trained with the EPV system, he would have had me chased by my own players at high speed, and he would have worked on my scoring ability in that environment. It is clear that the final goal had been lost for me. A method and tools. This book offers effective processes and tools you can use to achieve the same success as our ancestors. You will gain a clear understanding of the endpoint vision EPV system, learn how to discover and define your EPV, and identify and take critical actions to make your preferred future unfold now. You may even experiment with physical enactments of your desired goals. We share how this important idea can change your life by changing your approach to success. Just in case you are saying to yourself, that's fine for other people, but this stuff doesn't work for me. There are numerous stories throughout this book that illustrate how the EPV system has been successfully applied in such diverse areas as coaching sports teams, management of enterprises, relationship enhancement, career building, and as an effective learning tool in the classroom. You will be introduced to simple systems analysis techniques that are highly effective in information technology, such as questioning and graphic methods for the capturing of critical events, forward processing, and backchaining. You will be introduced to the concepts of clearly identifying the endpoint, pacing the events back to now, and examining beyond the endpoint. Laddering, creating a collage, mind mapping, and engaging in enhanced creative problem-solving techniques will also be presented. In today's world, the need to be innovative is paramount to our success. This means coming up with new ideas and then determining how to make them happen are vital skills. We invite you to make the methods in this book part of your path to success.